Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And the most important decision that you can make in World of Warcraft is which class and specialization are you going to choose? Make the wrong choice. Maybe you're left abandoned and nobody wants you in your group because you're not a viable option, or maybe you just get bored too easily of the specialization, or maybe it's just way too complicated and it's going to absolutely drive you nuts when you're trying to figure it out. So the purpose of today's video and most of these deep dives is to take a really detailed look at every specialization and break them down to see if this is going to be the appropriate selection for you moving into the next expansion at midnight. Do note with a caveat that this is still the beta and things may be subject to change, but I do my best to relay those news, patch notes, and updates to you here on the channel. So if you don't want to miss out on that, smash the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. Now, Restoration Shaman was my highly coveted, most fun healer for the expansion for the War Within. I really liked all the little micro decisions that you could do it, all the little crowd control effects that it had, but it is being stripped down. It is being completely stripped down, because also another thing that I said about it was that it was also the most complicated and keybind dense specializations that you could play in the War Within. This is looking to be a little bit less. I'd say it's a little bit less. It had so many keybinds that it's going to be hard to get it down to like a Mistweaver level of keybinds when it comes to the healer role, but it's definitely significantly reduced. But with that reduction, we've also lost some fun things as well. So it's important that we cover that. Let's go over everything that we've lost basically, first of all, and then we can talk about what we've gained after that. And then we can talk about play style, complexity, and all of that. So the first thing that I'm sad about losing is Thunderstorm. You see in the bottom left of the class tree here, no Thunderstorm and no Lightning Lasso, which means that Lightning Lasso has gone back to a PvP talent, which means that your already like high budgeted PvP talent window is getting even more high budgeted. And look at this new PvP talent that's coming in, Call of Alakir. Nature Swiftness now can also affect your Hex, but it gets its cooldown increased by 30 seconds. So we'll have to wait and see. Instant Hex might be coming back in. We saw Instant Clone as well. And it's interesting to me that they're giving healers instant crowd control. I think that this could be a good way of getting more people to play healer, because obviously crowd control is, you know, one of the best ways to control the end of a match. So giving healers more access to powerful crowd control effects like this could be a good way to get more people to play healer, but this might be a work in progress because obviously Nature Swiftness is pretty vital to Restoration Shaman. But losing Thunderstorm, losing that knockback, you still do have projection, you still do have static field totem, so you can put static field totem and move targets around, so you do still have some like positional tactics at least with the specialization. But in the War Within, they also nerf static field to a minute and a half, so I'm a little bit sad about losing out on that, but I think it's probably for the best. Stone Bulwark totem has also been removed, which is just an absorb totem. So defensive cooldowns are just being stripped away from classes left and right in the most recent patch notes, which I'll have linked at the end of this video. They took Nether Walk away from Demon Hunters, which is their ice block effect where they go immune to damage. So they're definitely not afraid in terms of stripping the classes down of keybinds, but also defensive cooldowns, so they can get the game into a more understandable state, so it's not just spiking low HP, high HP, low HP, high HP, and kind of anxiety inducing. So we've lost a little bit of utility, defense in that aspect, and it's just important to note, but we still do have like stamina benefits through the Earth Elemental totem throughout the class talent tree, which is nice. We still have Astral Shift, so we still do have like a wall effect, and we still have some damage mitigation tools as well through our Healing Stream totem. So as far as like damage mitigation, you're probably going to still be one of the most durable healers. I can't see that kind of falling off for you in that sense. Now when we look at like the base kit, that's where we're going to start to see really significant changes. They've removed Healing Surge, so I don't know how to feel about that, because to me, when I played Restoration Shaman and some of the old school expansions, the choice between lesser healing wave, and greater healing wave, that was kind of the gameplay. It was like at any moment in time, does this guy need a fast heal that's high mana cost, or can I get away with a slower one? And then my judgment on that would determine whether or not I would run out of mana before an encounter was over, and then I could feel cool for making the right decision more often. I kind of liked that gameplay in the old school expansions, but we've kind of moved away from that entirely. And mana management, like the mana management was Healing Surge and Healing Wave, right? Healing Wave, slower cast, kind of greed it, or Healing Surge, faster cast, but you And I feel like that was an interesting decision, global to global, which is it's no longer the case. You just have Healing Wave. However, they've made Healing Wave faster. They basically like fused them together. So Healing Wave is just Healing Surge with the name Healing Wave. So it's a really powerful heal. Is the trade-off. So like you're still going to be viable. It's just having lost that decision making that I'm not 100% sure on, but it does open up your keybinds a lot because basically you have a 2-button rotation. You're going to Riptide or you're going to Healing Wave, and then because you have Earth Shield talents that make your Earth Shield permanent, you just have to put that up once. You can forget about it, and then you can just run around spamming Riptides, proccing your totems with your Apex talents, which get these little swirly whirlwind effects, and just go into town with instant heals. They did recently bring back Unleash Life, so at least you will have the option to temporarily modify one of your spells if you want it to be a Riptide or maybe a Nature Swiftness Healing Wave or the like. So they did bring that, because if that wasn't there, it was literally just run around spamming Riptides and putting totems down and being, for the most part, instant cast, which is something that I thought they were going to want to move away from. So I don't think that you're going to get away with being as OP as you are, because I think it's actually really OP with the current build of Restoration Shaman. You can be so heavily instant cast. Another one is that you're going to have to choose between Ascendance and Healing Tide Totem. What's interesting about this is that they stole the talent that amplified Healing Tide Totem, which would make your casted heals instant for a time after, where you had to choose between more mana versus instant heals. And then they just condensed that into Ascendance. So Ascendance is just complete God mode. Ascendance now makes it so your Riptide will make your next Healing Wave or Chain Heal instant. So that is insane throughput, especially when you have talents at the bottom like Deeply Rooted Elements, where you can proc Ascendance and then Riptide and then instant heal, Riptide, instant heal, and you're just bouncing around effectively doing instant heals the whole time, right? So if you pop Ascendance, you can just do Riptide, Healing Wave, Riptide, Healing Wave. Now, I do suppose, in AoE encounters, you will have the choice between Chain Heal versus Healing Wave. You want to do a single target heal or an AoE heal, but it seems like your decision making as far as like mana management is significantly lower. But that little instant cast during Ascendance is such a powerful mechanic. It is such a strong mechanic. I really can't see that not getting nerfed. It just provides so much instant and immediate recovery and it's just like completely dwarfing Healing Tide Totem at the moment on the beta, that I can't really see you switching to that. Now, it is also my understanding with the current dungeon testing and even PvP testing that I've done, that Resto Shaman is just really strong right now. The throughput is really high on it, so you're probably most likely going to get nerfed, but you can just see that the rotation is significantly easier. You can just spam Riptide, unleash Riptides, and just drop Healing Stream Totems, and they get Ascendance procs, which give you instant healing waves, and you can, for the most part, just run around slapping like 3 instant buttons and get like a tremendous amount of value and a tremendous amount of throughput for your class. You still do have other tools like Spirit Walkers, which will make you immune to interrupts through talents. So even if you do manage to find into a window where you do need to cast, you're going to have ways to basically immune crowd control in those windows as well. So it's a hyper mobile, and it's going to be a lot less global starved specialization, where you probably got more time to use Flame Shock and Lava Burst. Before, I had to put Flame Shock and Lava Burst on like really secondary keybinds because you had so many different just globals and healing abilities to use. So keybind density has been brought down. They've simplified the gameplay a lot. There's also no synergy now between Riptide and Healing Wave as far as making it faster. It's just the same no matter what you do. So if you mess up your rotation and you press a Healing Wave without doing a Riptide before it, it's not going to matter as much. So that was like one way that one Shaman would be better than another, is they would time their Riptides before their casted heals, because it would make them faster. That mechanic's gone, so you can just, I want to cast a heal, so I'm going to cast it, and it's not a mistake necessarily to cast it. So you've lost a little bit of those like skill defining micro decisions that would obviously make that class more difficult than it was previously. And I really like I'm trying to determine like what's going to be the big difference maker from one Restoration Shaman to the next. It's probably just like their management of the Riptides in the Ascendance window, because unlike making it faster, now it makes it instant. So in the cooldown window, you'll get a big advantage if you're timing your Riptides between your heals, but not otherwise, basically not outside of that major cooldown window. So a really big prunage. I think a lot of Resto Shamans though will probably be happy that Earthen Wall Totem is also gone. Earthen Wall Totem was just so annoying. People weren't standing in it. PvE, I'm pretty sure you just never used it because it wasn't powerful enough. Another component is that Wind Shear is a 30-second cooldown for a Resto Shaman. This is another kind of like clearly skill defining ability for Resto Shaman, was to juggle healing, keeping everyone alive, and then interrupting on a 12-second cooldown, which was very rapid, right? You could stop many casts in dungeons or PvP with Wind Shear alone. So now going to a 30-second cooldown, you still have the tool to sort of defend yourself in crowd control situations or emergency situations, but it's not going to be your role in the group to be the one shutting down the casts. I honestly think they're shifting away from interrupts and more so to like a stun meta in PvE, where everybody just has stuns and AoE crowd controls, and they just chain those together because they remove the DR in PvE. But in PvP, it says 4-second interrupt, but in PvP it's still only 2. They just increase the duration again for PvE to limit the windows where like big heavy hitting casts are coming through that could possibly one-shot a target. So you can see that it's been incredibly simplified from its previous iterations. It's way more straightforward. I do think mechanically that it's probably too OP, and then also like these Riptides buffing your Stormstream totem is another thing. I just feel like it's a little bit too... You can get away with just only instant cast for the most part, and judging by the changes that they've made to some other healers more recently, like Discipline Priest, I feel like there's no way you're going to get away with it in its current iteration because it's just way too strong like this. You can see you're proccing Ancestors, you have instant heals, you can use NS to get more instant heals, you can use Ascendance to make your Riptides give you more instant heals, and then in between those Riptides, if you don't have any instant heals, you can drop Healing Stream totems, and this is going to be like incredibly high instant cast throughput, really strong for Resto Shaman. There are ways now also to apply Earth Shield with Water Shield, so you get the double tap and you'll save on the mana. I do think that could be one way of kind of outmanaing. Is that a term? I'm not too sure. Another healer or not. But for me, I feel like those kind of like little micro decisions is definitely taking away from the flavor that I like from it. But obviously I'm a more advanced player, and that's why I tend to gravitate towards the more difficult and more complex specializations, which is why I ranked Arcane Mage and Restoration Shaman my favorite in the War Within. So if you're somebody who likes that advanced playstyle, then those picks would have been great for you at the time. However, in this expansion, it's a lot easier. It's a lot simpler. Keybinds are reduced significantly. All the little tiny mistakes that you might be able to make in your rotation have basically been removed. So it's very straightforward. Just very, very straightforward. There's less responsibility on the interrupts. So if you're like a new player to Restoration Shaman or you were intimidated by it, it's probably a good time to get into it. However, if you were a Restoration Shaman main and you liked all those little nuances that I've been describing so far throughout the video, it might feel a bit more hollow. So maybe you want to try something new so you can have that experience of growth again. It really just depends on your skill level. And this is what they're trying to do with all the classes, right? Is bring down the skill ceiling, bring down the keybind. I think the keybind density for sure, but all these little micro choices as well. It's a lot. Resto Shaman's losing a lot. But I think as long as it's tuned, it's going to be an effective healer. It's going to be very effective. We still have raid buffs with Sky Fury, still have a ton of tools in order to like taunt things with Earth Elemental as well in group content for dungeon play. And then in PvP, still have Purge, still have lots of crowd control with roots and cap totems that you can place on the ground. But the loss of Thunderstorm, obviously, pretty big. But at the same time, there's no Earthen Wall totem. So you gotta take the W's where you can get them sometimes, right? But that's my breakdown for Restoration Shaman right now in the Midnight Beta. I think it's a lot easier, but not the easiest healer, but a lot easier than it was. So if you were curious about trying it, but you're intimidated, this is probably the best time to do it. However, it's also really strong, so it may get nerfed significantly over the next round of changes that are likely to be made week to week for the beta. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown of this. I'm trying to give it as like honest and straightforward and as much value to you as possible, and not to sugarcoat anything here to it. But I appreciate your support. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.